bring it back up to the top. And quite frankly, the bottom in this division, based on last year and possibly even projected into this year, is pretty good still. The Denver Broncos finished 4th last year and missed the playoffs. But their key addition is a former Super Bowl winning quarterback who possibly and probably should have 2 rings were it not for a terrible call from Darrell Bevell. I am talking about Russell Wilson. Huge pickup for them. Best quarterback they've had since Peyton Manning. The defense, Patrick Surtain going into his sophomore campaign, coming off a very strong rookie year. 2-headed monster in the backfield, which I don't think Melvin Gordon is quite ready to give up his lead role in. Javonte Williams coming off a nice year. We're going to see where that goes. Much improved O-line. Ultimately, I still think that it comes down to the progression of Russell Wilson's receivers. I believe you had mentioned to me just the other day that Tim Patrick tore his Achilles.
Yeah, he tore his ACL yesterday in practice.
It was an ACL. It wasn't the Achilles. It was the ACL.
ACL. So okay. He's out for the year. And, I mean, he was their leading receiving touchdown guy last year, and that's a huge loss. I mean, Cortland Sutton, obviously he came back off a torn ACL last year, and he had a bounce-back season, but he still hasn't caught back to that full stride yet. So,
Jerry Jeudy, kind of murky of what kind of season he's going to have. The running game's reliable.
It is reliable. I mean, I think Javonte Williams has the number 1 spot. I think
he should.
He should. And Melvin Gordon might not want to give it up, but I think he knows internally that it's his, and even going back to the receivers, KJ Hamler last year didn't really play much.
No.
So there's a lot of questions on the offensive side, and I also think there's a lot of questions on the defensive side of the ball for the Broncos. I mean, Patrick Surtain is – go ahead.
No, I agree with where you're going. I'm assuming that some of your questions might lie within the linebacking core. That would be my guess.
Yeah, that's exactly where it's at. I mean, you have Bradley Chubb, who – had a phenomenal rookie season. But since then, he's been plagued by injuries. The production hasn't quite been there. And then you bring along a Randy Gregory, former Cowboy.
Yeah.
But as a Cowboy fan, although I was upset about it, I had to stop and think about it for a second. And really, for the amount of time he's been in the NFL, he really hasn't done much. He has made impact plays. I will not take that away from him. But last year, he played the most games of his career, and he only got 6 sacks out of it. So, he's coming along over here, and the way I look at it is if there's no Bradley Chubb, Randy Gregory is not going to do much. Oh, and by the way, he's on PUP to start off training camp. So the other thing that's been hurting him has been lingering injuries. So I think the linebacker position, which is actually a very important position in that defense, is going to struggle. Oh, and I think the other thing Randy Gregory will struggle with is he's been playing with his hand on the ground for a while. He hasn't played standing up since he was at Nebraska. And he has added some weight since then. So he still has some burst, but he's not the same Randy Gregory. There's just too many things.
It's funny. You alluded to the linebacking corps. While talented, raw, certain guys have to get coached up. Certain parts of that middle of the defense need to just get upgraded. It's hard to believe because it seems like another lifetime ago. But this team is just a season removed. At this time last year, Von Miller was still a member of this football team. And in that short period of time, he went to L.A. at the deadline. He won a Super Bowl there. And then he took a massive offer from the Los Angeles Rams, who are the defending, the Buffalo Bills. And, I wouldn't call it ring chasing. I think it's more contract chasing, because if they're going to give it to him, he's earned it on his resume. But in a division that features Justin Herbert and Patrick Mahomes and a very talented Raiders team led by Derek Carr, I just think that all three of these other teams just have more completeness on the roster, just more answers on the roster. And while I do think Denver will be respectable this year, I do not have them doing better. I'm going to say a respectable 7-10. A very respectable 7-10, maybe 8-9, but I'm going to lean towards 7-10, mainly because I don't think that they're going to do well in the division. I think the division is going to be over half their losses.
Yeah, and as you talk about the quarterback position, if we were to look at this division, without a question, they have the best quarterback division.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
But then you sit there and you start ranking the quarterbacks within that division. And quite frankly, I think this is a year that Justin Herbert is going to make that leap over Patrick Mahomes. I think Patrick Mahomes will stay above Derek Carr, but I don't see Russell Wilson being better than any of the other three.
I don't either. He's going to be happier that he actually has a more functional offensive line. I will mention this about Russ before we move on to our next team. Despite playing for a very bad Seahawks team last year, and quite frankly, they weren't that good in 2020 either. Even though they were a playoff team, I think they were very fortunate to be in the playoffs. I will say this about Russ's game. He had an excellent year given the circumstances. So I do think in that regard, he brings credibility, leadership, and in certain scenarios, a chance to win in the fourth quarter. But I do believe that with the linebacking corps, they're going to be exposed, particularly in the running game against. And I also believe that Russ is going to probably have to do too much. And he's going to get frustrated because while his receiving corps is rather talented, they're not very seasoned. And when he looks around and doesn't see Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf, that's going to frustrate him. And, it doesn't help none that he plays, in my opinion, the most competitive division in the NFL this coming season. And the AFC, in my opinion, is the stronger conference this year. So I do think Russ is going to be in for a bit of I don't even know if you'd call it a rude awakening, because it's still an upgrade over what he dealt with in Seattle, but it's going to be a work in progress for sure. And I've got them going 7-10 and finishing in fourth.
Yeah, and not only I think it will be a rude awakening, because when you look at across the rest of the division, you have two teams that made some noise during free agency, and you have another team that has Patrick Mahomes.
It gives you a chance every week.
It gives you a chance every week. But then when you look at Denver, they brought Russell Wilson along, but I think it's pretty safe to say that Russell Wilson is at the tail end of his career.
Yes. A lot of not miles in the sense of years, miles in the sense of beatings, because Russ has taken usage. Far removed from the glory days of his Seahawk tenure, when they went to 2 consecutive Super Bowls, winning the first of those 2. Oddly enough, he defeated the team that he currently is employed by, defeating the great Peyton Manning in that game, and it was a horrible, horrible Super Bowl in my team's stadium, MetLife Stadium. Mm-hmm. 7-10, in my opinion, a respectable 7-10. They're not going to be. I could see them catching a couple of upsets. But for the most part, when I look at the competition in this division, I could actually see these dudes going 0-6 in the division, but I'm going to say 1-5 in the West. I think they'll do better elsewhere, and that's why they'll get to that 7, potentially 8, but I'm going to keep them at 7-10.
So I also have them at 7-10, but I also have them 2-4 within the division.
Okay.
I have them getting swept by the Chargers this year, but splitting with the Chiefs and the Raiders.
Okay.
If this Bronco team was in another division, they would
Oh, yeah.
probably be the division winner.
Very possible. And it's got to be a strange thing when you see that, because it's very rare that you either get like what happened to our division in 2020, where it was historically bad. And albeit you always want to get in the postseason, I'd be lying if I said it didn't feel weird to have to root for the Eagles to get us in so we could be 6-10, because we earlier in the day we had defeated your team, who was missing their franchise quarterback for the majority of the season, that being Dak Prescott. We won the game, had to wait hours later, and then Philly decided to tank on us and screw us out of that. But the point to be made is, on this side of the spectrum, it's the opposite, where everybody in this division is all right. And when I say 7-10, and I keep reiterating respectable,
yeah.
This Denver Bronco team is, I'm going to say, 2 years away, maybe at the absolute swan of Russell Wilson's ride, where they could be in contention for bigger things in the conference. But in my opinion, I do believe Russ is already going to be past where he needs to be at that point. So while I think this is an upgrade, I don't think the big picture in terms of the Russell Wilson career is going to change their fate. I don't think he's winning this team a Super Bowl, not this year, nor the next couple.
No. I mean, honestly, if you look at Seattle, what was the reason why they did it? It was time for change. It was time to get younger. So,
which did kind of blow me away that they retained Pete Carroll. That's another conversation for another day, because I am very much not a fan of Pete Carroll. I try to not just, ignite it because of my natural dislike and disdain for him, being a Fighting Irish fan as yourself. It's deeper than that. I just don't care for the dude on so many levels. But and it was kind of weird to see Wagner and Wilson out the door, but yet Pete Carroll's still there. That all of that just didn't make sense to me.
It's the politics or the corporate NFL that we see nowadays.
But I will say this: it's very rare, and we're not even talking about the Seahawks, but I do want to make one final point. It's very rare that in the NFL a guy gets a third shot with a franchise when he failed the first two times. And in Pete Carroll's case, he did that with the Jets, failed there. The New England Patriots, he actually coached in between Bill Parcells and Bill Belichick, failed there. Had a great run with the Seahawks following his great run, albeit dirty run, with USC. We're going to move it over to a team that I think you and I are both very high on, the Los Angeles Chargers. It came down to a Week 17 classic in Vegas against the Raiders. They finished third by losing that game. They would have finished second and possibly gotten in. Their key additions, too, that stand out off the page to me: cornerback J.C. Jackson, formerly of the New England Patriots, as well as Khalil Mack. I like both of these pickups. I believe that Khalil Mack is primed to have not necessarily an Oakland Raider / Chicago Bear early on Khalil Mack year, but I do think that he's going to thrive in that defensive scheme. J.C. Jackson, while a big name, I think he might struggle early on, but I do think he'll come on strong towards the end and prove that he is a top 10 corner in the league and that he was deserving of that big-ass contract they gave him. On the other side of the ball, Justin Herbert, I'm going to put this out there right now, and it's kind of early. He's actually my regular season MVP pick going into this particular season. Mike Williams and Keenan Allen, two completely different receivers, but two receivers that complement each other well. And I also think Gerald Everett in this offense can actually knock on the door for top 10 fantasy purposes in terms of the tight end position. Austin Eckler, in a lot of people's mocks, he's going as high as 2, just behind Jonathan Taylor. In our draft, I have a decision to make. because I could either go Cup, Cook, or Eckler, or trade back. But this is a very talented football team. And last year, it was a sour way that they lost that game to the Raiders. But Herbert showed me so much in that game despite losing. And when I watched the Raiders in Cincinnati, I couldn't help but think it would have been a much better game if it was Herbert versus Burrow. No disrespect to Carr, but just kind of speaking how I feel about the matter. I think this team is going to go 12-5, and I think this team is going to be the number 3 seed in the AFC, and they are winning this division. I got them going. I'm going to go 4-2 in the division. I've got them also. I believe you said that you got them. Who did you have them sweeping? Did you say you got them sweeping? I got them sweeping the Chiefs.
I was going to say, it's not me.
I got them sweeping the Chiefs. I've got them splitting with the Raiders and splitting with the Broncos. I think they're going to win 2 games against the Chiefs that are both going to be similar games. I think they're actually going to be defensive oriented, even though when people see the 2 quarterbacks that jump off the page, they naturally think shootout. I actually tend to think that both those games are going to be a little more low scoring than most would think. 12-5 with an opportunity to win a Super Bowl, but I do have their season ending in round 2. And as I said, it is very, very early in the year to make these predictions, but this is kind of where I see them. They're a really good team. And I know after the sour taste last year, they're going to be a lot better. And they want to finish this year.
Yeah, it's really hard to disagree with a lot of the things you said that just now. I mean, I look at what this Charger team has done this offseason, especially on the defensive side of the ball. And we talk about the Khalil Mack of the Raiders. I mean, I think what Khalil Mack is going to do is allow Joey Bosa to take even another step or 2 into being great. I mean, the guy is already a great player, but when you have to game plan to figure out who are you going to go double team, you sit there and your first instinct says double team Joey Bosa. He's a younger player. He's
closer to the quarterback when the play starts.
When the play starts, exactly.
Yeah, you can at least nudge Mack. You can't nudge Bosa. He's going to be dancing on your quarterback.
Yeah.
So yes, he's the guy. And it's in either way, it's not a winning situation.
No, it's not. And as far as J.C. Jackson goes, I actually think he is the prize. I mean, when there was talks about Dallas making trades with the Patriots and it kept Stephon Gilmore, and I was like, hell with that. I want J.C. Jackson. Like, I mean, the guy is a great NFL football defensive back. Yeah. And the fact that he was under the tutelage of Bill Belichick tells me he's not going to struggle at all whatsoever with this Charger team because of Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack. But then there's one other thing. Darwin James. He's still holding in. Or no, he got paid. He's coming off, a really good season, in which before that he tore his ACL.
Yeah, he was a bit of an enigma before that because he had the bad injury. And prior to that, I think a lot of people viewed him as this guy's good. He has a lot of potential, but we don't know how good he's going to be. Will the injury slow him down? To your point, he had a good bounce back year off a rough injury. Defensively, this I think about the Patriots not being able to retain Jackson, and I know in the Belichick era, they have done that frequently and constantly with a player that we're even going to talk about with the next team. But it's funny you mentioned Gilmore. Gilmore's back in New England now, and Gilmore's not the player he was, say, 3 years ago, 2 years ago. They picked up Jabril Peppers, who I'll be honest, he's literally the same exact player as Landon Collins, with the exception of the fact that he's a little more versatile. I'm veering it all the way over to New England because I'm thinking about the move, getting it back on track. This Chargers team is a legitimate Super Bowl contender this year.
Absolutely.
And I got Herbert as my MVP. I stand by that. I think he is winning the league MVP this year.
I have him finishing second.
Okay.
I have him finishing second. I am not going to say who I have finishing first. There's specific reason behind that. I will tell you who finishes first after September 3rd.
Okay.
But I look at that offense. I mean, first of all, the drafting the Rashawn Slater last year. What a home run that was. What a home run. It's not very often that a rookie offensive tackle becomes an all-pro.
And I legitimately wanted to punch my television because he was still on the board. And I'm looking. I'm like, Giants, what the fuck are you doing? I wanted him in that year. I projected that we were going to get him in a lot of mocks. I was, to put it bluntly, I like the value that we got in the Justin Fields trade. But the Kadarius Toney pick still doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I still think Toney might meet that potential. Not to, once again, veering it away. But, that player could have been on my team. And, yeah, that's a little annoying. This Charger team, I got them having an opportunity to be in the title game, but I don't believe that they are better than the two teams that I think are going to end up there. But they are definitely trending upwards.
So I'm right there with you. I believe they are also a 12-5 team. However, I have them finishing as the 2 seed in the AFC, but I do not have them in the title game either.
Interesting. Okay. Well, it would be very Charger-like of them if they didn't end up in the title game after having a top seed or 2 seed, because, in the Phillip Rivers / LaDainian Tomlinson era, great talented teams, but they never quite got over the top all the way. And it's unfortunate. But no, this is a new age. This is a new team. And I'll tell you, Herbert is a special guy. And while, the recency bias thing, because it's a what have you done for me lately league, is on Joe Burrow. And I'm a fan of Joe Burrow, don't get me wrong. But I do think this dude in Los Angeles is a better quarterback than Joe Burrow. And no disrespect to Joe. It's just my opinion.
Yeah, and honestly, I think one reason why Herbert is going to have an even better season and be right there as a top 2 finisher in the NFL Offensive Player of the Year or even MVP is because of one reason, and that's the drafting of Zion Johnson. I think he completes that offensive line, which, it's a chain reaction. When you have a good line, you have a good running game. When you have a good running game, you usually have a good passing game, and if they can give him the time, because there was a few times last year, even against the Cowboys, with Michael Parsons chasing after him, where it made you wonder if they had a better guard that could have been able to shift over while they could pick up the backside blitz or whatever the case may be. Like, Zion Johnson fills that hole. So there's just a lot of positive things to say about this team. Keenan Allen, one of the best route runners in the NFL.
Yeah.
If you give Justin Herbert a little bit more time, that just means more targets for
And
Keenan.
Mike Williams doesn't have a lot of drops.
No, he doesn't. He's a very reliable. He is the receiver now today that we expected when he was at Clemson. That's what he is. It took him a little bit of time, but he's there. He's there now. It's just he's overshadowed because he plays behind Mike Williams, or I'm sorry, Keenan Allen.
And I think Everett is primed to have a bust out year because of the kind of offense and what they offer. Eckler's another dude that in terms of yards from scrimmage at the running back position, it's possible that he can have the most yards because, Henry, while being the rushing king or damn near neck and neck with Jonathan Taylor, he's not catching the same kind of passes out of the backfield. They have other people that they deploy in those situations. But Eckler can do both, similar to a healthy Christian McCaffrey, similar to Jonathan Taylor right now, because right now Jonathan Taylor can't do no wrong. But yeah, this Charger team's definitely for real. And I think they have a chance to do something special in the next few years. I got them having a great year, which is a big upgrade over what happened last year. They're growing. I accidentally clicked on the Chiefs. My apologies. The Las Vegas Raiders finishing second last year, losing in Cincinnati in the wild card round. Key additions, linebacker Chandler Jones, who I was kind of getting on that, another player that New England thought they could replace. Wide receiver Davante Adams, arguably the best receiver in the NFL today. Part of the motivation going to the Raiders is his relationship with quarterback Derek Carr. They are great friends. Their ties started going all the way back to college. Max Crosby got paid. He's looking at, another solid season. They have a lot of answers on defense. Going back to last year, I do believe that one of the weaknesses was actually the secondary, not necessarily the front seven. On the other side of the ball, Josh Jacobs has to stay healthy. He's had some lingering injuries. I do believe Carr will do his job to the best of his ability. I don't consider him a superstar quarterback, but he has a lot of support. And Darren Waller is a top 5 to top 3 tight end in the league right now. When I look for weaknesses, I'm going to hang it on the secondary. I do believe that while it's not a terrible secondary, I think it can be exploited with the right matchups. Raiders are a good football team. In my opinion, they're a playoff football team. I've got them going, I'm going to say, basically similar to last year. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think were they 9-8 last year, or were they 10-7? I believe they were 9-8.
I believe so as well. I can verify that if you need me to.
I got them going 10-7. I'm going to say 3-3 in the division, but going 10-7, making the playoffs. And once again, similar to last year, I don't think it's going to be a long stay in the playoffs. But what do the Raiders still need? If I had to point my finger on it, I think they got to improve the secondary still. Even though they do have playmakers on that side of the ball, I do think that's their weakest part of the defense.
So they were 10-7 last year.
Okay.
Yeah, it's I look at all the moves the Las Vegas Raiders made this year. The first one that stands out, obviously, is Davante Adams, like you said. I mean,
yeah,
you're putting the connection of Derek Carr and Davante Adams, the same connection we had while they were at Fresno State. And the reason why those two players went where they went was because they had each other.
Yeah.
There's a video I saw today. It was Hunter Renfrow ordering an Uber. And it was Davante, Hunter, Derek, and I forgot who the other player was. But you talk about chemistry. It's Davante recording, and he's sitting here like, leave it to this guy to order this Uber. He ordered, I guess, an Uber X because they're all sitting in the car tight, And I was laughing, and I thought to myself, wow, the chemistry is there.
A football team is a family, and
absolutely.
This is where that stuff is built.
It is.
It's a grind, and it's a long season. But these preseason training camps, the voluntary mini camps, these are all where these bonds are built.
They are, and I look at that. I'm like, all right, the chemistry's there. You got both Hunter Renfrow, he got paid, Davante got paid. I think they're going to complement each other. I mean, they might be the best 1-2 punch in the NFL. I mean, you can make an argument for Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. You can make an argument for other players, but there's just something because the way Derek trusts Hunter Renfrow. Then, of course, you mentioned Darren Waller. I'm expecting him to really come back strong. Josh Jacobs hasn't made much noise over the last year, But when you surround your team with that receiving core and you have it makes life easier for him. You have to account for Davante Adams. You have to. I believe the Raiders are the second best team in this division, believe it or not. I actually don't have them finishing 10-7. I have them finishing 11-6.
Okay.
I think they're going to make some noise this year. I think they have all the right pieces. Now you eliminate also the John Gruden factor. Like, there's a lot of things that point to this team doing very well.
And the Henry Ruggs situation.
And Damon Arnett. One reason why their secondary is not that great. You know, your 2 first-round picks from the same draft class. They went through a lot. They went through a lot, way too much, but they bounced back. A lot of credit goes out to Rick Pushash, however you say his last name, the standing coach for John Gruden last year. But, I mean, they've been through a lot, but they were still there.
Yes.
So it's, you know, I truly believe this Raider team is going to be good. I think a lot of it goes to the fact that they added Davante Adams and Chandler Jones. I think offensively they're going to be moving the ball just fine. There's going to be a lot of good games by Derek Carr, and there's also going to be some bad ones. But I think based on the fact that they've added more talent and also due to the fact that Chandler Jones compliments Max Crosby so much that they're going to be able to make up for those minor mistakes that Derek Carr makes. And for that reason, I have them 11-6.
All right. Either way, I think we both view them as a very talented team and a team that, if things line up right, can make some noise. I think you're a little more enthusiastic about their postseason potential than I am, but, you know, that's why they play the games. We're going to find out. Kansas City Chiefs, per usual, won the AFC last year, AFC West, lost the AFC title game. When I look at key additions, I think more of key subtractions, that obviously being Tyreek Hill. But of veteran players, 2 guys that stood out to me are these 2 guys who are still relatively young. Ronald Jones did not have a nice run with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But when I look at the running backs on the Kansas City Chiefs, I do believe that this is a wild card with Jones. He could either be a week 3 cut at the end of the preseason, or he can be a guy that becomes the player that he should have been in Tampa Bay. And when I think of MVS, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, I see this as a great opportunity. And, you know, lucky guy. He got to play with Aaron Rodgers, and now he gets to play with the other guy from State Farm, Patrick Mahomes. You know, so I think MVS. Yeah, so I think I think MVS. And it's not just about the guys throwing the ball. I think this guy has grown as a receiver. You know, doing better with conquering the route tree, just becoming an overall better player. There's some subtractions also. They lose the Honey Badger. Chris Jones. Where is Chris Jones now?
He's still there.
He's still there?
Mm-hmm.
Defensively, they're going to have weeks where they look better than they are, and they're going to have weeks where they're like, oh, they are bad. And there's going to be a little bit of everything. Opposite side of the ball, Travis Kelsey, while still a premier tight end, he is getting older. And I do believe that with the absence of Tyreek Hill, it will affect Kelsey the most. Well, maybe with the exception of Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes, this is going to be a real telltale year about his abilities all the way of making guys better. A guy like Aaron Rodgers, while he might be under high scrutiny when it comes to his playoff record, he does make guys better. We know that Mahomes was great with Hill and vice versa. I'm sure Hill's going to miss Mahomes too. But I will say this, it's going to be on Patrick Mahomes to get the most out of what he has to work with. And quite frankly, he doesn't have as much to work with as he is used to and accustomed to. I still have this team nudging out 10 wins, 10-7, which I believe will be just good enough for the final seed in the AFC, because I do have a very talented team as my team that's not going to make the playoffs as a little bit of a surprise. But I do have the Chiefs getting in. But similar to the Raiders, I also have it being a short stay, and I want to reiterate, I think this division is going to beat the ever-living shit out of each other.
Yeah, I mean, you said it best. This division is going to beat the ever-living shit out of each other. There's no question about it. This division, like we just said about the Broncos, any other division, they're probably the division winner. And we have the Raiders. Raiders, any other division, they're winning the division.
Yeah, I have to agree. Yeah.
So same argument can be made about the Chargers and the Chiefs. There's a few things for me with the Chiefs. I truly believe Tyreek Hill not being there offensively is going to hurt that offense drastically. And the reason why, because with Patrick Mahomes, he's the type of quarterback that as soon as you take away his first read, it's backyard football. And a lot of the time that meant Tyreek Hill just go. He might be running a quick slant. He might be running a 5-yard out. He might be running a flag, whatever the case may be. Every time you would see Patrick Mahomes roll out, he would go. And how did the Chiefs beat the Bills? Was somewhat a similar play.
Mm-hmm.
So you take away Tyreek Hill from that offense, and now you're putting it on Juju Smith-Schuster, who has been a good number 2 receiver. But when it was on him, it wasn't. He hasn't been able to.
Yeah, because when he separated from Antonio Brown, there was a legitimate difference, and AB was getting double teamed, whereas Juju was eating. But now, to your point, Juju becoming the number 1 guy, the 1B, the second number 2. In that regard, that's where Travis Kelsey needs to step up for them, and just kind of wear more responsibility than he probably ever has in his career. And when you think about the injuries piling up, the game where it's going to be tough. Why do I have this team still making the playoffs despite these obvious issues?
Well,
Patrick Mahomes.
Patrick Mahomes.
Patrick Mahomes is truly the reason. And I'm going to give Andy Reid his due too. But it's Patrick Mahomes. I just think he'll will them in, and it's not always going to be pretty. And like I said, a short stay in the playoffs. I really believe that. I think they're going to get in and just sneak, and I got them as my 7 seed.
Yeah, and I can't argue with that. Especially when we just talked.
And the Raiders are my 5. I didn't mention that, but the Raiders are my 5. Chiefs are my 7.
But one thing you hit on, but you didn't, Tyrann Mathieu. I believe that is a huge loss for this team. They did bring in the locker room. It's a huge voice in that locker room. I mean, we're talking about a multi-time All-Pro. Yes, they brought in Justin Reed, but he is not Tyrann Mathieu.
No,
he is not Tyrann Mathieu. I also have the Chiefs finishing 10-7. I have them finishing 3rd, and I have them sneaking in.
It's going to be interesting, but it really is, because there's so many ways that this could go.
And there is. And then the other part is Mecole Hardman. What has he shown us?
And that's when he had the support and the situation to produce more. But I will say this. Hill was so I need the ball, I need the ball, I need the ball, and I get that. That sometimes, similar to the shit that's going on in Green Bay, sometimes losing the obvious number 1 sometimes makes you a better quarterback, because now you're really digging deep in terms. And what did you say? After the first read, he goes to the backyard football. And part of that is also because of the lack of confidence with these other guys. Now he has no other choice but to really work on that now.
And and that is actually, to build on what you just said. That's why I think there's going to be a decline this year with this team. But next year, when you take into account Sky Moore, who plays very similar to Tyreek Hill, I think he's going to have his struggles this year, of course, but next year, if we're talking about next year, great. And then you were talking about Chris Jones. What did they go out and do? They took what could have possibly been the steal of the draft. That was at number 30, 29, something like that, and George Karlaftis out of Purdue.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they made moves, but the moves kind of felt like they were more for next year, not so much this year.
Good point.
So, I mean, we'll see what's going on with them. We move forward, but yeah, the Chiefs. I think we're going to see a side of the Chiefs that we haven't seen, and I think a lot of it's going to be due to the fact that one, you lose Tyreek Hill, but what happens when you pay your quarterback the amount of money they paid him? After they've paid other players on that team, you tend to say goodbye to other star players, and that usually comes back and bites the team in the butt.
And I specifically remember when Mahomes first got that massive contract when I was still a member of the Jordan Patrick Show. And we did an episode about this. And I believe it was Jordan himself who had made mention that over the course of time, what you just said is going to come to fruition, where they're going to start losing more and more guys because of the fact that they just flat out can't afford everybody. Do I think Tyreek Hill was necessarily a casualty of that? Not per se. I believe that they were trying to think of longevity, drafting, where they're going to go past that. Because I'll put it to you like this. There's going to be weeks when you're watching Dolphin games where Tyreek Hill is going to look mad because maybe he's getting frustrated with the progression or the delayed progression of Tua. I think having Jalen Waddle there will help out Hill. And I'm freezing Waddle in our fantasy in the Sun League. But, yeah, the Chiefs, this is going to be an off year. But just for the fact that I do have that kind of faith in Patrick Mahomes, I do think they're going to sneak in early out of the playoffs. And I did want to speak on this too, briefly, just on, the lineage of this interesting division. And it's funny because over the course of many years, this division, like others, has been modified. Because there is a team that plays out in Seattle that was once a member of this division for many years.
Very true.
And a lot of people, new NFL fans, don't even know that.
Hey, Steve Largent should be on that list if that's the case.
And I'm keeping it on the defensive side because it doesn't necessarily mean like, oh, he's the greatest Seahawk. We kind of just guys that were kind of bursting through my mind at the time. Von Miller, Cortez Kennedy. And you know what it is? Because everybody knows who Steve Largent is. A lot of people forget who Cortez Kennedy is. I mean, shit, you could even go O-line with the Seahawks. They might have the greatest offensive lineman ever. It depends who you ask. Junior Seau, member of the San Diego Chargers, the late, great Junior Seau. He was a beast. Howie Long, number 75. And, of course, the late, great Derek Thomas. Like I said, there's a lot of other players you could throw in here. You could think of Jack Tatum of the Raiders. You want to go Raiders old school? Lyle Alzado, who I actually played with Lyle's son in Pee Wee's. Lyle used to go to some of my games when I was a kid. Rest in peace to you, Lyle. Really nice guy. I would
argue. I don't want to say argue, but I would present a good debate. Not Von Miller, but one of two other players, and that's Steve Atwater or Bill Romanowski. I believe.
Oh yeah, Romo has history with two teams in this division.
Yeah, exactly. And
if it's not Miller, it's Atwater.
Yeah, and because I look at Von Miller, I mean, he had great years, but then DeMarcus Ware came along, and it put him over the top,
Yeah. That's a good point because you always need that supporting member. Because I mean, shit. You look at my team in the '80s, late '70s, early '80s. Like Harry Carson was the heart and soul of that team. But when things really got good for everybody, they draft Taylor, they draft Banks. Things got better. But a great talent like Von Miller was not able to meet the pinnacle until he had that help. And that's a really solid point. I like it. I don't think anybody wins the Super Bowl out of this division, even though I think you can make an honest case that this is the best division and most competitive division in football. Usually when we say that in recent years, we're used to that being the AFC North. But the AFC North is very murky because, just to let the listener know, and I think we mentioned this on a previous video that's coming out to you as well, but point to be made is Deshaun Watson today, the appeal, he could be out for another full season. This could go to the supreme level of the law. This could be delayed to a point where Watson doesn't miss anything, and then maybe there's a penalty waiting the year after. There are so many variables. I know that Zappy and myself both shared the sentiment on a certain level. I think Zappy a little more than me, that the Browns, given their schedule, could get off to a pretty cool start. But without Deshaun Watson, it changes the trajectory. And I know we're not talking about the AFC North, but that is an upcoming show. And I just wanted to give everyone, the listeners, a heads up that as the season gets closer, we will update that situation on anything that we may have recorded based on our feelings that Deshaun Watson was going to be a member of the team this year. Anything you want to add to this, Zap, before we get out of here?
No, for the people that are listening, if you have a bunch of fans that love football but don't follow football, if there's people in here, diehard fans like ourselves, whatever the case may be, but if there was one thing that I would ever say is, if you want to watch football, make sure you watch every AFC West game this year. I mean, like we said, every one of those teams could be a Super Bowl contender in the AFC, but based on the strength of their division, there's going to be a lot of bloodshed. There's going to be a lot of injuries. There's going to be a lot of stuff that may turn the fate of this division. So,
and there's no guarantee.
There's no guarantees. And because of that, I feel like while it's the best division, we're once again probably going to see the best division not even be a representative of the Super Bowl this year. And it's not their fault. I mean, it's just the blueprint was out there. Hey, go sign big names, build the roster, make your strengths even stronger, and get ready. And it might come back and bite them in the butt. But
you look at strong divisions or divisions that beat the shit out of each other, so to speak. You go back to last year. When people think about the Cincinnati Bengals making it to the Super Bowl, I don't think too many people think, or even so much as remember, that the Cleveland Browns beat them twice last year. It's hard to believe, actually. It's hard to believe when you think about it. But, the Bengals had a very strange season last year. And it just goes to show that so much of this has to do with health, or maybe the deteriorating health of teams you're playing at the right time. I mean, after all, when they played the one-seeded Titans, that was Henry's first came back in a long time. That's a big ask. There's always variables going into the playoffs. And like I said, we are just kind of wetting our beak and just getting into the beginning of all of this. And, as the season moves along, we plan on doing a lot of Monday morning quarterback shows, as well as highlighting the best games of the week and really diving into our predictions and how we think they play out. And football's back, guys, and we are very excited for it. Thank you so much for watching. Make it a point, if you guys are digging the content, to definitely hit that subscribe button on my YouTube channel. And Zap, I just want to say, man, I really appreciate all the passion and all the help with this, man. I've been having a great time doing these shows with you. Big shout out to Idris. He's been a big contributor. Our buddy Brett recently bought a house, and it's been a little tougher to get him on lately, but we're going to be getting him on here soon. And also shout out to good friend of the show, John Olson. We're actually going to be recording a show with him, and he's out in Wisconsin right now. So, it's been a lot of cool contributions from everyone, and we're just having a great time doing this. And that's what makes it fun.
If we're going to bring John on, if there's a way we can bring Josh on as well, that would be great, just to get the father-son input on the NFC North. That would be ideal. That would be ideal.
I like it, dude. I think that's a great idea. Let's make it a point that we make that happen. For my good friend Michael Zappy, I'm Richie Hicks. Thank you so much for watching. Take it easy.